Hello, friends. Let me welcome Sara Roberts. Sara, welcome to this Great People interview series.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. Really looking forward to getting into the conversation.
Absolutely. I'm excited as well, as I said before. Um, Friends, she is three times founder, investor backed entrepreneur with proven track record for more than 2 decades of experience. Especially, she is focused on impact driven businesses. And obviously, she's grown businesses from scratch to 10 million plus ARR. Uh, and let me just hand it over back to Sarah to further elaborate your own introduction.
Thank you. So, yeah, my name's Sara. I have founded 3 companies, just launching my 4th consultancy. I have both VC backed and bootstrap companies and grown them from that small idea up to 10 million ARR. I've worked across 3 continents, so Europe, Africa, and the US, and in 3 different verticals. So I've looked at health and wellness, which is my passion, insights as a service, and then brand innovation and semiotics. And most recently, I've just launched Well Purpose. So that's my advisory studio. And that's focused on specifically for health tech founders, helping them substantially increase their revenue, look at new markets and partnerships, and support them with real life go to market clarity. So essentially taking all that learning that I've had and helping them scale their ventures.
Amazing and amazing. And I think this is all based on your belief that business can be a force for good, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, having worked in various verticals and various geographies, I think you bring in a huge amount of experience. So, let's kind of discuss this fundamental of your, I should say, the core of your ethos, which is impact led leadership and how embedding impact across the business is possible without necessarily it being a charity. Um, so can you just share your views on this to get started?
Yeah, sure. I think fundamentally, just picking up on what you said last towards the end, everybody presumes that when you say impact, it's sort of charitable led, you're not supposed to make profit. When in actual fact, the more profit you make, the more impact you can do. So for me, it's how I approach it is I don't like to throw the word around. I think it's been bandied around so much that people, it's starting to lose its impact and its impact
Yeah,
as the word and its shape. So many people talk about it that it becomes this sort of buzzword that we engage with, but actually doesn't fundamentally embed itself in an organization to such a degree that every single decision is considered through a lens of impact, which is what I feel that it should be. It shouldn't be a marketing, it's not something to get your product into a B Corp store or whatever it may be. But it is something that should really govern the essence of the business. For me, it's the actual brief of the starting point. And I remember just sort of considering back to one of my businesses, Healthy Nibbles. We were B Corp. We won numerous awards for sustainability and impact. But that impact started when I was on my own with a single laptop in a tiny, tiny little office. It started then. It didn't start when I got investment. It didn't start when the product had been launched, and it certainly didn't start as we became more successful. It was something that was rooted in every decision that we actually made. And I think that that's how I feel and how I approach every single business that I'm involved in. And it's why I obsess over all of the details, just really making sure that everything. So putting it in perspective or into, shall we say, a real world example. In my last business, we provided healthy food for various different environments. And every single one of those products we considered through how they actually got to our site, where had they come from, where the raw ingredients had come from, the packaging, and what those individual producers and suppliers were doing out in terms of their remit and their business operations. So in actual fact, through 2,000 products that we engaged with, we had 60% that were minority founders of those products. And we were able to track the carbon footprint, and we were able to go and see the farming communities that actually made the raw ingredients. And it was those stories and those fundamental decisions that were made at the early start that actually then enabled the business to separate and pull away from any competition. So, I think, to me, it's the very essence of the business that you're actually creating.
So, I think let's elaborate this in your own way when you say you have these 7 pointers, and the first one being design with purpose from day one, which is obviously where you get started. So, would you like to just go over your 7 factors one by one?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, yeah, as you say, design with purpose from day one. So going back to me being in a room with a laptop and, just me, I think too many founders bring impact into a later stage, whereas I think we need to bring it right back to the foundations. So when you're building your MVP, when you're chasing your product market fit, when you're looking at scaling and looking at how do I get out to market, bring the impact decision right back to there. So it's a consideration in the same way as how you deal with anything else in terms of people and how you're actually marketing the product. That's where we need to consider how can we make an impact. And it could be something simple as employing local people at a slightly higher rate than the regional rate is. It doesn't have to start huge. It just needs to start where you are, because you cannot retrofit it. You absolutely can't retrofit impact, because if those decisions are not made at the starting point, you're going to lose your way, and it's going to be very, very messy to retrofit it.
Absolutely agree with that. And
yes. Go on. Sorry.
Moving on to the next one that we could probably discuss is how do we scale the culture and not just the revenue? Because again, that's kind of interrelated, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And it's a really interesting one, because I actually feel that the hardest element of impact and culture comes at the beginning. Because what I did find, particularly in my last venture, by the time we'd won the awards for the impact and sustainability and initiatives, and we were becoming known as being an impact business, the culture and the people that we attracted into the business, and suppliers as well, took care of themselves, because we became known as this is what we do and this is why we do it. So we automatically attracted a really strong pipeline of clients, customers and suppliers that wanted to work with us because we were known for this. I have, on the other hand, in my first venture, I scaled too quickly, and I got people in that just could do the job, and it didn't work. The team fractured. There was division. That in turn dips the morale. The progress then slows, and it doesn't take too long for that to happen, and it's a bit scary. So actually, it is about bringing those right people in. And one interesting experience I had probably 3 or 4 years ago is I went through the Goldman Sachs program for small business leaders, and I transitioned my entire interviewing strategy to values led. And I think that's how you build a culture, is not quite forget the sort of can you do X, Y, Z, but lead with a values led interview structure, and you will find the right people to join your team. For the most part, that culture piece and the enthusiasm will override any skills lack. And I'm saying for the most part, because sometimes you do need the right skills that can't be trainable. But
Yeah, yeah. But I think, in most parts, we can say, well, somebody can progress fast or slow, but skills, can be upgraded,
yeah,
or, they can be trained. But the attitudes have to be recruited. Uh, because if, that's your attitude, that's what you are. And if you bring in the right kind of attitude, then I think the business is with that same culture. And then regardless of, the problems, we can face those problems. We can take those challenges as opportunities, rather than, feeling bad about it. And uh, I think together we work as a team to solve the most complex problems. And that's because of the attitude,
mm,
rather than only the skills. And
yeah,
yeah, I totally.
absolutely. And I've really seen that play out. So in the last venture, I really noticed we had a sort of culture of trust, of autonomy. We balanced the sort of data and metrics against the accountability and how these people were performing in the team. And it became something we were known for. We launched an initiative called One Small Thing, which really stood out actually, and it enabled every employee to take an hour off every month to go help somebody. And initially, I started it as a charitable thing that they could go out and help a charity. But actually, we just said, you know what? If you want to go help your neighbor for an hour, if you want to go help a friend, do so. Because it was really fostering that spirit of giving back, but giving back in the way that meant something to the individual. And we had a really amazing result in terms of people that were committed to the business, and B, the type of, when we were able to measure that as we grew, we could see some really good sort of things like CEO approval rates, recommend to a friend, all of those sorts of things became a real testament to the culture that we built.
Wow, brilliant. That's fantastic. And how do you see, about the complexity, to translate into the clarity?
I think for me, we overcomplicate everything in general, and we really seem to like it within business. It's almost like a barrier to inclusion. Is let's keep our sectors, or let's keep our environment or our department really complex and really difficult to manage. And when in actual fact, what you need to be able to create is structured systems. I absolutely believe in structured systems and things that can help. I've always built really strong foundations for absolutely everything, whether it's been CRMs, legal, HR, whatever it is. Start with the hard graft at the start, and then when you're entering into, your 100th employee, you've already got the structures and everything in place. So I
Yeah.
think there is an element of starting with good foundations and building really, really good foundations. I think as a leader, if there are complex environments, which in some sectors there are, it's your job to make it simple for everybody else to understand. That's part of your role as an impact-driven leader. That's what you should be able to do. And if you can't, you shouldn't be in the role, in reality. And I think it's really about taking all of the different aspects of a business and making it understandable to your team and to the environments around you. And it can be difficult working in different cultures. As I say, I've worked in 3 different regions and operated in environments where language or even the way we pronounce things hasn't necessarily been the same.
Yeah.
And that's just a bit around just understanding human differences and human diversity, and again just having that willingness and that openness to have conversations right from the start. And basically I think if you approach business in that way, if you approach business as an impact-driven leader, you then set the tone for how the rest of your team will then respond to their environments and their area, respective areas of the business that they're looking after. So if they see you making things simple, if they see you being less complex but bringing clarity to customers, or you're working to soften differences, then they're going to do that. If they are just responsible for suppliers or just responsible for clients, they're going to be able to do that in their roles.
Yeah. So you said, at the start, impact doesn't necessarily needs to be charity. And I like when you said that, in fact, if you're more profitable, you can be, more impactful. So can you just elaborate what is the role of money in your mind, versus typical definition of growth?
So I, across my businesses, would always manage and would always measure metrics that were wider than just financial. But I think in terms of your starting where you've just mentioned, in terms of what is the role of money, to me, money is a tool. It's a tool that drives me to want to make my businesses profitable, because then it enables me to enhance my reach and impact for the business. And that for me is the fundamental use of money and the fundamental definition. It's a tool that we have. We become obsessed about it in terms of hoarding up wealth, but I don't think that that's our nature and our purpose. I think it's very much something that we can use for the betterment of so many people out there in so many different ways. And if we all used our heart and worked from our heart, we'd actually fix many of the world's issues, because we'd all be working on different things as well that are important to us. So I think that, first of all, that is where I see money. Money in terms of the business is always that, obviously, if you've got VCs involved, yes, you're going to have to be driving results for them. But I also think that that's responsible investment and taking on investment with an impact mindset. This is not just about using their funds to fritter it away. This is about using their funds, reach their targets, but also reach yours. If you don't have the, should we say, the complexity of having a VC involved, and you're bootstrapping or anything like that, then for me, it's the quicker I reach profitability, the more I can do to help others. But in terms of, in practicality, shall I say, in terms of how we measure more than the finances, in Healthy Nibbles, we actually built a dashboard that looked way beyond the sort of commercial. So we looked at how many people did we help reach healthier choices and enable their access to it. We looked at how many of our clients improved their well-being metrics, and improve their employee engagement as a result of our involvement. And we looked at carbon footprint and how much did we save through our sort of more intelligent logistics and our structured logistics. So really looking at it from different angles, and all of those questions may not work for you or for whoever's listening. It may not work for their business. This was drilled down into ours. And I think that that's what's important, and that's the separator, is look at your business and look at what are you involved in, why have you created your product or service in the first place, and that should then lead into the metrics that are relevant for you to look at aside from financial.
Fantastic. So I think we talked a lot about, how do you get impact as part of the business right from day one? How do you see money as a tool? And you mentioned about the VCs and all that. And yes, we need to be profitable. So let me jump onto a different question altogether. Is now I think lots of aspiring entrepreneurs, or probably in the initial stages of their entrepreneurship, they are now thinking, well, but tell us your experience with VCs. What are they looking for? And even though I have impact in mind, um, what I should be saying to the VCs, because you said very clearly that you should be meeting VCs' goals and yours as well. So there's clear difference between what VCs are looking for. Obviously, they have to be um, they have to believe and be involved in the impact as well. Otherwise, they won't agree to the impact that we want to create. But however, I think when it comes to monthly and yearly Excel sheets, it's finally some of those numbers. But so please share with us, those who are getting into this, what VCs are looking for, and how do we get some funding?
Yeah, I think too often a lot of entrepreneurs do a scattergun approach. There's so many, if you've only got to scroll LinkedIn and you can see lists of 500, thousands of VCs. And I think too often they are literally peppered with pitch decks. And I would sort of halt it straight at that point in terms of don't do that. For me, it is very much, and how I've always chosen the investors that we've had is through relationship and through alignment. I really feel that it's like, and I've said it so many times, I feel like it's like a marriage. Because if they annoy you or you annoy them on day one, that is going to be a lot worse in 10 years from now.
Yeah,
It's not going to get better. You need to be aligned. But also you need to realize that you are taking an external source of money, and with that it comes requirements. It's not a sort of free for all.
yeah,
There's so many, again, in the news and media, where people have taken funding and then crazily hired without structure
yeah,
the flash office and think they're winning. And it isn't about that. It's, more is expected of you if you take their money. You're adding in a separate set of objectives into your business that you didn't have previously if you were bootstrapping. So for me, going back to the basics, I would say be over prepared. Like ridiculously over prepared. Your deal room is perfect. If you don't know what a deal room is, you can Google it. There's loads of examples, but it's essentially a file structure of everything in your business that shows that you've got thought, contracts, every single thing that you can possibly imagine has been thought about. So make sure that's done beforehand. Make sure your financial reporting, particularly recently where I've been reviewing some deals, so many companies have missed their confirmation statements on Companies House. They haven't filed on time. Well, that is going to put a red flag, because if you can't do a 10-minute job of sorting your confirmation statement out on HMRC,
yeah,
then don't expect to be able to get the funding from a VC, because all of those checks are going to be done. And I'm probably very much, I would say, much more of a softer touch than having an analyst rip up your business and review your business from a structured VC environment. So, it's really about making sure you are prepared. You've got all your documents, doing your research first, giving yourself the time. So don't expect to raise funds in the first 3 months, particularly now. This year or the last few years have been pretty brutal. So you've really got to know. And do you need VC money, first of all? Because remembering that if you take VC money, you're expected to hit that sort of, the golden 100 million plus sort of revenue. Can you even reach that? Does your business align with having VC funding? Look at grant funding, look at debt funding, look at asset finance, there's invoice financing, there's lots of other financial products that may help you get from where you are to where you want to be. And look at all of those options before you go take VC funding, and know that you've got the scale to get the VC funding. So you need to make sure you are prepared. You need to make sure you've got the scale. You need to make sure your deck is good and not waffly. And then what I would do is probably 6 months out of where I am expecting to start my raise journey, I would start nurturing and developing relationships. Because ultimately, as I say, there's so many of these databases out there where you can submit your pitch deck. I would probably, I'd be very doubtful if anybody that submits their pitch deck with a cold, without any sort of warm introduction, I'd be very surprised if they actually get funding from that environment. I think it's very much about building those relationships. And for instance, like we were in health tech and also impact driven, then we aligned to that type of investor. We didn't go for the generic investors. So I think there's lots of different layers to it, but I think it's making sure that you're sort of baking in that preparation time before you actually go to market with your fundraising, and then taking it from the warm lead perspective. But ultimately, the biggest mistake I find is lack of preparation.
Brilliant, brilliant. That's so useful. And probably coming towards the end of our discussion, I think it was exciting to talk to you. And as I originally believed, we're already exceeding our time limit, but I'm sure this is going to be very interesting and engaging for the audience. So, what's your ultimate goal, the purpose, the ultimate purpose, and vision, if you would like to share, please?
Yes, certainly. So going back about 15 years now, my dad was in palliative care. And he passed away from a lifestyle related disease, essentially something that was preventable. So that for me changed the entire direction. So if you look at sort of the range of scale ups that I've launched, the first two were very much in the brand innovation and that sort of world.
Yeah.
And my experience with my dad totally changed that. So I started with Healthy Nibbles. That was my first company. That ended at the end of 2023. Now I've got Well Purposed, helping health tech founders. And really, it has changed my entire trajectory into preventative care, metabolic health, and enabling equity within health, because I'm seeing a big emerging problem coming with the range of new wearable tools that are coming out. I'm seeing a big emerging problem coming in terms of health equity. So that's my next decade at least ahead of me.
Wow. Fantastic, fantastic. Well, that was so nice to talk to you. Amazing insights, lots of valuable advice to the entrepreneurs who are entering into this risky world, if I may say so. And yeah, thank you once again for your time.
No problem. It's been good to have a chat.
Brilliant. Thank you.